Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. We've got so much to get to this morning. I do want to talk about this IVF bill that was blocked at a federal level. Senate Republicans blocked this measure that would protect and expand IVF in vitro fertilization. So that's according to Tammy Duckworth, that they blocked this. And, why wouldn't they? Donald Trump has already signed an executive order kind of reducing the cost of IVF. And actually, this has gotten a lot of criticism from pro life groups for good reason. There's definitely good reasons why the pro life groups are against not only the measure that Democrats came up with to expand access to IVF, but they're also against the President Donald Trump executive order. We're going to get into that. Duckworth, she's calling Trump's executive order toothless and overly vague. No, it's not. And believe it or not, pro-life groups are against this. The IVF executive order, and we're going to get into why, but her measure, the Democrats' measure here for IVF, enshrines IVF as a right. So this is called the Right to IVF Act that they wanted to get passed. And, like I said, rights, civil rights, they like to come up with these so-called rights up on the spot. And that is not a right. Okay. You don't have a right to have children. You don't have if it takes the efforts of somebody else, it isn't a right. Okay, somebody has to birth your child for you. Somebody has to provide you this service, the IVF service. Okay, somebody has to provide you the medications in order to go through IVF. Okay, so it shouldn't be considered a right, much like food isn't a right, healthcare isn't a right. They like to come up with these things and call them rights for people. Sorry, reproductive technology is not a right, okay, for people. Okay, you can't force healthcare insurers, health insurance companies to pay for these things. And when you make it a right, IVF a right, then you're forcing these insurance companies, doctors, and medical centers to provide this treatment, these infertility treatments, and that's just not fair. It's just not fair. So we're going to get into that a little bit. And this morning, I've got a few things I want to hit. Maryland Democrats, they have a majority there, not nearly as bad as the Illinois Democrats have over the Republicans here in the state of Illinois, but Maryland, they've got a majority. And they passed, or no, not Maryland, sorry, Maine. They censured this GOP representative. Okay, so Maine, they have a majority Democrats, not a super majority like we have here in the state of Illinois, where the Democrats have the super majority over the Republicans. But they censured 70 to 75, something like that. This woman, she's a GOP representative, and she spoke out on social media. And they're like, you shared a picture of a minor on your social media page. Okay, this was a high school pole vaulter. He was a man pretending to be a woman, and he won his pole vault competition against this woman, and she shared his picture online. Okay. And they censured her for that, which is just ridiculous. So we're going to get to that. We're also going to get to Maryland. Maryland Democrats, they want to put vending machines containing condoms in schools. Yes. Even schools with kindergartners, learning. They want I just don't understand. The only individuals who could use the condoms, obviously, are the adults, okay, in the school. And why can't they just go to the store? I don't get this. So you heard this correctly. Maryland Democrats want to put vending machines containing condoms in kindergarten schools. We're going to get to that. Donald Trump. This was just a nice video. I like to pull these sometimes towards the end of the week. These feel-good stories. Donald Trump, he visited this crowd of people who were attending the first ever White House tour, visitors tour under the Trump administration. And they had this just uproar of patriotism when they saw Donald Trump, and they just started chanting USA, USA. And I was just like, I'm going to share that with you guys because I thought it was pretty sweet. All right, let's get to Tammy Duckworth. Ugh, Tammy Duckworth. She's almost as worst. She's almost as bad as Dick Durbin. I don't know. The two of them are just terrible. Senate Republicans, they blocked this measure. President Donald Trump, like I said, it's duplicative. This measure, number one. Plus, it kind of just goes too far. The Democrats measure with IVF because it makes, like I said, IVF a right. And Democrats like to do that thing. Left-wing lawmakers, they like to make these so-called rights. Sorry, you don't have a right to food. You don't have a right to healthcare or housing. Those aren't human rights, okay? So we can't force healthcare companies to pay for IVF, assisted reproductive technology, especially we can't force taxpayers to pay for this. There's some people who don't have any interest in reproduction. There's some people who are aged out of reproduction, okay? And we're going to force those people to pay for other people's reproductive technology. Yeah, and I don't mind Donald Trump's executive order. Let me be clear. I don't mind it. I semi disagree with the pro-life groups. I do think that there needs to be regulation of the IVF because they are making all of these embryos and then they're just discarding them. And that's not good because it's life at conception, right? And they're making all of this life and then they're killing it. Okay, so killing life. When they're making all of these embryos. So the pro-life groups are upset naturally because you're making all of these embryos and then you're winding up taking all of them and then discarding them and discarding life. So I want to get to Duckworth. She called the executive order Donald Trump passed toothless, which is just not true. But take a look.
This amendment would protect the right to IVF and other fertility care, and it would require insurers to cover IVF. I know my Republican colleagues will claim that President Trump has already solved this problem, but don't be fooled. Donald Trump's recent toothless, overly vague executive order does nothing to expand access to IVF. It was just lip service from a known liar. In fact, it's because of President Trump and Senate Republicans that Roe v. Wade was overturned, causing IVF to be at risk in the first place. If President Trump is supposedly so committed to making government more efficient, he could stop wasting time and resources on more bureaucracy. The solution to this is simple and all laid out in the Right to IVF Act. And if Senate Republicans want to put their votes where their mouths are, they must vote for this amendment that would provide hope for millions of Americans whose most desperate hope in the world is to have a family of their own.
Okay. So that's Jamie Duckworth, left-wing lawmaker, and they like to create these so-called rights, okay? And this would require, now Donald Trump's executive order does not do that. It reduces the cost of an in vitro fertilization. Likely it's going to be, more cost effective for insurance too. They won't mind covering this kind of stuff. Insurance companies, IVF, they won't mind covering that because the cost has been reduced. So pro-life groups, they've criticized not only Duckworth's measure here that got shut down by Senate Republicans, because guess what? We already have an executive order that kind of expands IVF. Why would we enshrine IVF as a right into federal law? Why would we do that by passing the Right to IVF Act and requiring insurance companies? That's the big thing, is requiring insurance companies and requiring Medicaid, Medicare to pay for IVF, okay? That's not fair because there's people who are past the reproductive age. There's people who have no interest in reproduction. They shouldn't be on the hook for your infertility treatments, okay? Although I am not against IVF, okay? I want to be very clear. I'm not against IVF. I think that it's needed, especially because our fertility rate is at a historic low, okay? And we wouldn't even be having to pass these executive orders or amendments if it not be for our fertility rate being so low. The fertility rate is at a historic low. Now, David Smith from the Illinois Family Institute suggested that instead of expanding IVF, we should implement changes to our current sex ed practices. And I'm going to take it a step further than David Smith. I think that, a lot of what RFK Jr. is going to do, fixing, our food, educating people on what food is healthy for you and what food is not, taking a lot of these additives, metals. I mean, I read something that like Girl Scout cookies were like complete, like Thin Mints. They're just metal. like the 100% metal. Okay. And then they put like a flavoring of chocolate and mint in there. Okay. That's it. It's all just metal. Okay. So that can't be good for your fertility. So I feel like RFK Jr. implementing some of his policies through the health department, like the Human Health and Services department, I feel like he would correct a lot of these infertility problems. But also David Smith, he suggested that there's a problem with our sex education practices. So quote, this is David Smith. He says, "It's my understanding that a lot of infertility comes from using birth control pills for a long period of time, promiscuous sexual activity, which creates STDs. They call them STIs now. I don't know, sexually transmitted diseases. But they call them STIs now. And then it causes scarring within the uterus and fallopian tubes, which makes it difficult for future pregnancies. That's where some of the infertility comes from, not all of it, okay? And he said, we need to change our sex ed classes, which are mandated by the government, and we need to tell kids that promiscuous sexual activity can decrease your chances for fertility in the future, and birth control for a long period of time can decrease your chances for fertility in the future. Okay, you're messing with your hormones, also hormone replacement therapies, things like that, that destroys your fertility in the future. Okay, so David Smith says we need to implement some changes with our sex ed classes that are demanded by our public schools and government. Okay, and then on top of that, I would say RFK Jr. putting a lot of these different policies in place that eliminate the problems with our food, the metals in our food, the additives, the chemicals. I think that's going to correct a lot of infertility. We're at a historic low right now. Okay. So something has to be done. Donald Trump's order is definitely way better than the measure that was proposed by Tammy Duckworth. It doesn't go as far. And it just aims to reduce the cost of IVF. Okay. And, insurers still have say over as to whether or not they want to insure IVF. So Smith said that Trump signing the executive order, I do think that this is true. David Smith, he's on to something here. Okay, Donald Trump signed this executive order on the campaign trail in 2024. I think it was late in the campaign trail. He promised IVF, or to reduce the cost and expand IVF. Okay, now he's keeping a campaign promise by signing this executive order. Okay, but here's what David Smith says. He goes, but the campaign promise was made to placate to some of these guys in the mushy middle or on the left. It doesn't dissuade them from attacking him, clearly, because you see Tammy Duckworth saying it's toothless, it doesn't mean a thing. He can't win with them. Okay, so truly, I don't think that Donald Trump is against IVF, but, I think that it was kind of like a non-issue for, like, he wasn't like, because it was towards the end where he made this campaign promise to reduce the cost, and I think it was partially to try to get him over that finish line, to get some of the left on, or maybe even moderates on, because people on the far right are against IVF, and the reason why is because of the total disregard for all of the embryos that are made during this process. Then you discard all of these embryos. I think that the IVF can be done, but there needs to be some sort of regulation where you can't just make billions of embryos knowing that they are going to die. Okay, so Duckworth said Senate Republicans, if they want to put their votes where their mouths are, they must vote for her amendment. Okay, no, lady, your amendment is so radical. Okay, it forces people to pay for IVF. It forces insurance companies, and it forces taxpayers to pay for IVF. There's a big difference between Trump's executive order and your measure. Okay. David Smith said, and this was the big thing, the Supreme Court of Alabama made history here by stating that human embryos created during IVF are human beings worthy of civil rights. And like I said, an actual human right, not housing, not food, none of that. I know they're going to tug on your emotions, and they're going to try to tell you that all these things are human rights. They're not. Okay. The only really human right endowed by a creator is the right to life. Okay. And if these embryos have been deemed by a Supreme Court of Alabama, this is making history, they've been deemed human beings worthy of civil rights by a court of law, in the court of law, then we need to recognize that and at least regulate this thing, right? We shouldn't be discarding billion. I read a crazy number. I don't know. I think it was like 70 or so embryos could be created during one like IVF treatment round, and then they throw away like obviously 69 of those, and then they only keep the one. So yeah, I think that there's people who abuse this process, abuse the infertility treatments, and they're abusing it, and that's not right. They're taking advantage of a crisis. They're taking advantage of vulnerable women, and that's just not right. So I agree with the pro-life movement. Kind of. I think Donald Trump's executive order doesn't harm anybody. Reducing the cost of in vitro fertilization, yeah, it just expands it. There should probably be some regulation around IVF where, we reduce the number of embryos that we're making here. And as always, the big problem is the infertility problems, which Democrats have kind of created with their crazy sex ed practices that they're teaching in government schools. And they've created the infertility problem by big pharma and big food. And a lot of that could be corrected, I think, and our infertility rate wouldn't be so high, and we wouldn't have to pass any of this, right? So let's get to Maryland Democrats wanting to put condoms in kindergarten schools. Yes, you heard me correctly. We're going to talk about that here next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Hey, good morning, Lisa. So do appreciate you being here this morning. Yes, we talked about Tammy Duckworth, of course. She's there trying to get her radical legislation passed, but it's kind of duplicative. It's not even duplicative. It's just so far left that there's no real need for it. Okay, let's just lower the cost of IVF right now. I think that this is a good middle. You're not going to appease the people who are totally against IVF. They would obviously not want to see it expanded at all. Like I said, if we were to correct, and I think RFK Jr. is going to be huge in this, if we were to correct some of the problems with this high infertility rate, like this is, we've got to research this and figure out why there's such a high infertility rate. And I think RFK Jr. is going to address a lot of that, the metals in our food, right? Girl Scout cookies, I heard something like they're all metal, like 100% metal. And the worst ones, the worst Girl Scout cookies, there was a study done. The worst ones that had like the most foreign substance in them, it was Thin Mints, and it was peppermint, or no, peanut butter patties. I forget the name of them, or peanut butter. They're the peanut butter ones. I forget the names of them. But those they're all my favorites. Okay. Like those are my two favorites. And then those are the worst ones for you. Okay. And they're the top sellers. So, they're feeding you metal, okay? The Girl Scouts cookies is just straight up metal, okay? There was a study done about it. And I think that RFK Jr. coming in and, possibly making moves that other places around the world have done where they ban these food additives. Like we just banned, what was that, Red Dye 40? We banned that. And if we ban some of these additives, in this country, I think that we're going to really correct a lot of not only infertility issues, but cancer, chronic diseases, things like that. So Democrats, I think it's so funny that they create the problem and then they find the solution. And let's not forget what they're probably using these embryos for. They're testing them. They're using them as little guinea pigs, okay? And they're using them for, I know that this is going to sound crazy, vaccinations, okay? So look it up. Vaccinations, certain vaccinations, they use aborted fetuses to practice on and to use for science to try to create vaccinations. And this is just what they're using for through IVF, these discarded embryos. They're going to be using those for science. And, that's just not moral, okay? Where we create life, we kill life, and then we play with life as if we're like little gods, and that's just not, we shouldn't be in the business of doing that. I feel like we're morally obligated to regulate IVF and to do it correctly. Okay, so I am going to be talking a little bit about Maryland Democrats. Oh boy, this is just absolutely insane. The Republican Party, okay, they had passed legislation that prohibited selling condoms. Okay, it's not as bad as you would think it is. Well, it is bad. But the Republicans years ago, okay, they prohibited the selling of condoms in public school vending machines. Okay, naturally because there's kids there, and you can sell them anywhere, but not in public schools because taxpayers shouldn't be paying for the installation of these things, and taxpayers don't want um, on their dime, okay, kids going and buying all kinds of condoms, okay, in high schools, whatever. Now, they've gone and they've done this bill. It's called House Bill 380. And they've changed that law, which would allow, it doesn't require kindergarten schools or public schools in Maryland to install these contraceptive machines, these vending machines in the school, but it would allow them to. Okay. And then it removes the misdemeanor. So if the public schools prior to this House Bill 380, if they were to have done this, because the Republican passed this prohibition of selling condoms in public schools, if they had done it prior to House Bill 380, it was a misdemeanor criminal penalty of $1,000. So if you ignored the law, the prohibition of selling condoms in public schools, if you ignored that, you would have been charged $1,000. They removed that penalty, and then they allowed contraceptives to be sold in, quote, nursery schools, preschools, elementary and high schools. I mean, that's crazy. So we're going to get to that good morning from Hawaii. Oh, man, I wish I was there. Yeah, don't eat the cookies. Yeah, don't eat the Girl Scout cookies. They're full of metal. Actually, Joe Rogan talked about it on his podcast where glyphosate, I think that's what it's called, and I think it's a type of metal. Glyphosate. Oh, it's an herbicide. Excuse me. Glyphosate is an herbicide. Wow, that's crazy. So it's used to kill plants and grasses. Yeah, so it's like chugging Roundup. Okay, that's essentially what you're doing when you're eating a roll of Thin Mints. Okay, so they're 100% glyphosate. Okay, so it was a study. Go check it out. Joe Rogan talked about it. All right, we're back. Okay. All right. I messed up. I made a mistake. I'm willing to say that I've made a mistake. Okay. The Girl Scout cookies, it's not metal. They're 100%. It's called glyphosate. Okay. If you look up glyphosate, it's similar to Roundup. It's an herbicide. Okay. So Thin Mints were the biggest culprits here in this study. They were like 100% glyphosate or something like that. And then the peanut butter, I don't know what the names of them are. I haven't had Girl Scout cookies in so long, but I do love my top 2 flavors of Girl Scout cookies. They're the worst for you, and that shouldn't shock you, I guess. But the Thin Mints, if you were to eat Thin Mints, which I always thought that the Thin Mints were the best ones for you because they were they were thin. And Thin Mints. No, the Thin Mints are 100% glyphosate, which is an herbicide. So it's like drinking Roundup, okay? Don't believe me, go check it out. Joe Rogan talked about this study for a period of time on his show, and I was just like, what? I will never be buying those again, which is so sad. But I mean, maybe RFK Jr. will get the glyphosate out of them and they'll be even better. If we ban certain additives like herbicide from our food. So I couldn't imagine that'd be great for your fertility. That's what we're talking about here on Conservative Cat. We were talking about this IVF measure being blocked by Senate Republicans because guess what? We already have an executive order expanding the access to IVF. Thank you, Donald Trump. Pro-life groups have criticized the move from Donald Trump, saying that IVF is anti-life, and to an extent that's true. You make 70 embryos, you discard 69 of them. The Alabama Supreme Court recognized that human embryos are, in fact, human beings, and they are worthy of civil rights. Okay. And civil rights means life. Okay. Nobody gets to take your life away from you. That's laid out. That's a right endowed to you by your creator. Nobody gets to take that life from you. That's why people go to prison. for killing people. Okay, so housing is not a human right. I don't know how else to put this. Food isn't a human right. What else have they got? Housing, food, healthcare, human right. Everybody says that the left wing politicians, they will craft legislation and they will try to say everything is a right. Not everything is a right. Okay. All right, I've got to get to this story because it's shocking. The Maryland Democrats, if they get their way, it's going to be lawful for kindergarten schools to have vending machines with condoms in them. Yes, with contraceptives. Yeah, so it's unclear why they want to decriminalize this, because it's criminal right now in Maryland, and most states it is criminal. Okay, you can't put vending machines, condoms in public schools. Okay, we're not paying tax dollars to these government schools so that way they can provide or sell condoms at the school. Okay. So this was prohibited for, since the beginning of time, practically. The Republicans prohibited selling condoms in schools, right? So I don't know why they want to decriminalize that now, and why this is a cause worth fighting for in Maryland. I feel like they've got better things to do. Take a listen to this. Here we go.
This one, the Maryland State House advancing a bill that would permit condoms to be sold in vending machines on public school campuses, including preschools. Republicans in the legislature say it's going too far. Maryland State Delegate Kathy Shalega is calling on parents to wake up, and she joins us now. So here's what Maryland Department of Legislative Services says about this bill that's making its way through the State House. This bill repeals the misdemeanor prohibition against an associated penalty for selling or offering for sale a contraceptive or contraceptive device by means of a vending machine or other automatic device at a kindergarten, nursery school, elementary school, or secondary school. And I think a lot of people at home are saying, what?
All of us on that, well, most of us on the House floor said exactly that. What is this? So we offered an amendment on the bill on second reading, when you can amend a bill, to just say, look, just high schools. We wouldn't like that either. The Republicans and the Maryland Freedom Caucus would not like that, but they rejected it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of schools that are teaching abstinence, right?
Well,
and,
right.
Maybe abstinence until marriage in the best case scenario, maybe just abstinence until you're in college, but to put condoms in a vending machine puts it right there in front of you. But why? What justification is there for doing this at a nursery school or a kindergarten? I mean, unless you just want to make a very broad brush law that doesn't take a lot to interpret it. Put it that way.
It makes no sense whatsoever. And, the intent may have at some point been high school, but when they rejected our move to just make it high school again, I, like you, would say you're discriminating against traditional families that don't want their 14-year-old daughter going to a high school and walking down the hall in front of a sex vending machine.
Right.
But, putting this in a daycare or nursery school and, into a preschool, I am a grandmother of two beautiful 10 and 7-year-old girls, and I can't imagine them walking down the hall and seeing a colorful condom vending machine with condoms and other things in it, and then having to have a conversation with a 7-year-old. Mom, what's a condom? What's in that machine?
Well, maybe they're thinking if we're running out of balloons to make balloon animals, we just go to the vending machine. So here's what Maryland State Delegate Nicole Williams said, trying to justify the move. Listen here.
It's not dictating what school systems should and shouldn't do. It's not mandating anybody to do anything or suggesting that they should do something. It's just removing a criminal penalty. The sky is not going to fall if we pass this bill.
I guess what she's saying there is it's not like you're going to suddenly see condoms at preschool. It just removes the criminal penalty, and then schools are free to do what they want to do with this.
Well, that's how they start, right, John? They start by saying, oh, don't object to this. But in the meantime, there was another bill on the Health and Government Operations Committee to put Plan B, birth control pills, all kinds of things in high schools. So, they're playing chess. Plan, first move, we remove the penalties so we can get the vending machine in the high school and other schools as well. And then next year, they're going to come back and they're going to put birth control pills, Plan B, condoms, as I told them on the House floor. Next year, you'll come back to regulate it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how it works.
And all of
Yeah, this is how it works. So Nicole Williams, Democrat, this is House Bill 380. It would allow contraceptives to be sold in nursery school, preschool, elementary, and high school vending machines. Also removes the misdemeanor criminal penalty of $1,000. So if you, this bill, I don't believe it's passed quite yet, but if they get their way, the high schools, if they were to put these vending machines in there, then, or high school and elementary school preschools, if they were to put these in there, they no longer would have to pay this $1,000 and they're allowed to do it. I don't know, even if there was some way you could justify this, which there's not, it's still something that the government shouldn't be prioritizing. Am I right? Like, nonetheless, like, this is the hill that they're willing to die on, and that's very deranged, to say the very least, but it shouldn't shock you because we all know Planned Parenthood, right, is probably in the pockets of the Democrats who are pushing this. And, of course, Planned Parenthood's going to be like, oh, we'll put our Plan B in there, put our contraceptives in there, and we'll make all of the money. Okay, so that's what this is about. The bill would not mandate the schools to sell condoms or other contraceptives yet. They'll probably make that get that bill passed next legislative session. Individual school systems would be responsible for making those decisions. So it doesn't mandate it, but probably next legislative session, the Democrats will craft a bill to mandate schools to put contraceptive devices in vending machines. Gosh, I can't believe that this is where we're at. One has to question the desire. Like, who is desiring these? Obviously, it's not the kids. Like, if you put it in a preschool, like, definitely not the children. It before, I'd imagine, the adults who are teaching the children, right? And they're around kids all day. Why the hell would you? Why? If you're an adult, you can just go to the store, right? If it's for the teachers, which it has to be, because this is a campus of 5-year-olds we're talking about. So it's very concerning. And there's absolutely zero need for this vending machine to be in the school or the daycare or the nursing school like this, a nursery school. Like, this is insane. So that's the best way I could summarize this. This is insane. And the Maryland Democrats have completely lost their minds. I have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. We're going to talk about a Maine representative who was censured by her majority Democrat peers. We're going to be right back with that story next. Yeah, I think those are the peanut butter ones, right, Lisa? I appreciate you tuning in. And yeah, the peanut butter ones are the worst ones for you. The ones with the peanut butter on they almost taste like a Reese's peanut butter cup. Those ones, they have glyphosate in them, and I think like traces of metal as well. And then Thin Mates are 100% herbicide. Like, it's pretty crazy. But I am going to come back. We're going to talk about this because for all of human history, it wasn't controversial to say men should compete against men, women should compete against women. We should have integrity in our competitions. But, somewhere along the way, progressives, they've decided that this non-controversial statement, men are men, women are women, somewhere along the way, progressives decided that's a very bigoted sentiment, and it's bigoted to want men to compete against men and women to compete against women. And I guess that's bigoted now all of a sudden. So that brings me to this story. They have censured this woman. She's a GOP representative. Her name is Lauren Libby, and she's a Maine representative. And, this was not controversial for all of human history, saying men should compete against women, women should compete against women. Like, this has just been the status quo for so long, but now all of a sudden, I guess it's bigoted to say that. And if you say the sentiment that men are men, women are women, or you agree with that sentiment, apparently you are so offensive, it's worthy of being censured now. If you are, a delegate, she's a representative, And she spoke out against this deranged ideology that men could compete against women. And she essentially got censured and punished for speaking her beliefs and speaking out for her constituents, because that's what her constituents believe as well. And that's why she posted what she did in her district there. She had some pole vaulter, okay, a pole vaulter. He was a biological male and he was competing against women in pole vault, okay. This is like the track thing where they, go and they run with the pole and then they like shoot themselves over a little bar or whatever and land on a mat. Okay. So he was a guy doing this and he was competing against women, and he won the state high school championship earlier this year in early February. She posted a photo of him, and expressing her protest against this, and she's censured for posting that photo. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Smash that like button. A little bit later in the show, we are going to get to some local things. You guys are going to want to check this out. Home Sweet Home, they want to build tiny houses. I wouldn't be against this as long as there's no taxpayer dollars. Now, it's going to be on the Connect Transit land. And Connect Transit owns this land. It's been a bit abandoned now, and it's leased to the city of Bloomington, I guess. So it's city of Bloomington land. It's leased to them. I don't know why they just don't build the train station or the transfer station there, because they like those parking lots and the abandoned buildings that we talked about yesterday. The city of Bloomington is knocking down these abandoned buildings and they're leveling it, and they're just going to put some asphalt parking lot there. And they're also going to do the transfer station there. Okay, the Connect Transit station. Transfer station. I don't know why they wouldn't just put it here, right? Because this is Connect Transit's land. Why don't they just put that there? But whatever. Now Home Sweet Home wants to build tiny houses there. From what I understand, Home Sweet Home is a nonprofit organization, and if you're not using taxpayer dollars for this, I really don't mind. Okay, I'm cool as long as it addresses the homeless population and it's not on my dime. Okay, because there's definitely a solution, a faster idea for the downtown Bloomington housing crisis and the homeless problem there. And BLN News, they've got an amazing op-ed, and they suggest that the Connect Transit electric buses that have been completely abandoned, you could just reconvert those into sleeping quarters for the homeless population. Okay, so these electric buses that Connect Transit doesn't appear to be using, they could just be used to house these individuals, which the taxpayers did pay for. Okay, so as long as there's no taxpayer dollars in this, I mean, I'm not against it. The nonprofit organization, now, I don't know. I'd have to look into Home Sweet Home Ministry, see what kind of grants that they get. As you know, as we talked about, places, nonprofit organizations like the Immigration Project here in Normal, they got $500,000 in just 7 months. Okay, don't know how much Home Sweet Home gets in taxpayer dollars. Probably not as much as that, because of course they're not illegal immigrants that they're helping. They're helping homeless people who may or may not be illegal immigrants, but that is not the goal of Governor J.B. Pritzker, is to help the homeless population and to fund people who actually want to help the homeless people, but rather he would like to fund illegal immigrants and their defense attorneys and their legal protection. So that's why he uses your taxpayer dollars for that. But we're going to get to that here in just a little bit. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Somebody gave me a question. They said, wait a second, Cat, you want homelessness to be taken care of as long as it's not done on tax dollars? Yeah, I know. What a crazy concept. I would prefer my tax dollars not going to people who are going to, take my taxpayer dollars and then, continue a lifestyle where they just want to be homeless. That's a lot of the in some cases, I shouldn't say a lot. In some cases, people just want to be addicted to drugs. Look at San Francisco, the homeless population there. A lot of homeless people just want to live in the streets and do drugs. And there's a rough they like the rough lifestyle, okay, and they don't want a job. They want to continue with their addiction, okay. That's really what the homeless problem is all about. Now, later in the show, I do want to talk about Home Sweet Home Ministries. They do great work, and I'm not going to disparage them in any kind of way. They want to build these tiny houses now south of downtown onto land that Connect Transit has owned, but they abandoned like 15 years ago. So they haven't really done anything Connect Transit with this land except they lease it to the city of Bloomington. Okay. Now, I don't know why the transfer station wasn't built there. We talked about that yesterday. They're knocking down a couple of abandoned buildings in downtown Bloomington, and then they're going to build the transfer station there. They're going to make parking lots and a transfer station for Connect Transit. Don't know why the transfer station isn't built there. You've owned this land, right, for 15 years. You've leased it to the city of Bloomington. City of Bloomington, they're knocking down these abandoned buildings. They're doing these parking lots and everything, and that's their land. So it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Why not just put the transfer station there? But whatever. Home Sweet Home, they want to build these tiny houses, and I'd be cool with this. It sounds like they're a nonprofit organization. Now, we know we have to be careful with nonprofit organizations. It could be getting some tax dollars. I haven't looked into Home Sweet Homes. Like if they've gotten, taxpayer dollars or grants from the state. We know some nonprofit organizations. I did that story a couple of days ago about ICER. This is a illegal immigrant where your tax dollars, $63 million actually went. This is an Illinois nonprofit organization. $63 million in just 7 months went to this organization, this nonprofit organization. Okay. No, I don't want my taxpayer dollars. It's a very volatile situation. And I think that there's plenty of people in the private sector who want to help homeless people, plenty of people who don't want to do it on your taxpayer dime. So, because it's a tough problem, and the government does it, with your tax dollars, and there's no guarantee that that problem's going to be fixed, whatever they throw at it. Okay, so. PLN News, there's an op-ed, and you guys are really going to like this. I think that is hilarious. There's a faster idea to correcting the homelessness issue in Bloomington. Okay. So we're going to get to that in just a couple of minutes because I really think that this is hilarious. This op-ed that BLN News has, she does a great job here with this. She suggests, that Connect Transit use the electric buses that are not running, okay? At least it appears that they don't seem to be running, okay? And we convert the electric buses into sleeping quarters, okay, for individuals. I think that's hilarious. Now, the taxpayers have paid for these buses. I think it was to the tune of $12 million or something like that. So we threw that $12 million towards these electric buses that seem to no longer or seem to not be really used. And they're buying more buses that aren't electric. I don't think that they're going to be electric. So we're going to talk about this because I think it's hilarious. It's a BLN News. That does honestly sound like it could be a remedy. It'd be a quick remedy. They're already there. You could take out the seats. You could remove the seats, put beds in there. And that's a great use of these electric buses that we've already spent $12 million on. So tiny homes, I've seen this actually like, I'm not against it. As long as there's no taxpayer dollars or anything going towards this, I'm totally cool with it. Like I said, taxpayer dollars, homelessness, it's not my job, right? Housing isn't a human right. We've already discussed this. You're not entitled to housing, and you can't force me to pay for it for you. Okay, much like IVF, we talked about that earlier. You can't force insurance companies. You can't force people who are not interested in reproduction or who are aged out of reproduction for paying it for you. Okay, Medicaid, Medicare shouldn't be covering your IVF. My tax dollars shouldn't be covering your IVF. My tax dollars shouldn't be covering your housing. My tax dollars shouldn't be covering your food. That is up to you as an individual. Now, I do think that there are people in the private sector who will dedicate time and effort and will dedicate resources to homelessness. And, I praise God for those people, the homelessness. I mean, I've definitely given money to homeless people in past, but that's of my own of my own will. I'm willingly giving somebody homeless some money if they're begging on the street corner, right? That is of my own will. And my issue is when you come in, you take the tax dollars and you try to solve this issue of homelessness, and you're never really going to solve it because some of the people are just wanting to live that type of lifestyle because they're addicted and they don't want to leave that addiction. Okay, so it's much more complicated than I think people realize, and we shouldn't be playing with our tax dollars when it comes to the issue of homelessness. So there's somebody out there who wants to do this without tax dollars. I'd be cool with that. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Look, man, I mean, I am not a heartless person, okay? I know what it's like, homelessness. I've seen it. I lived in rural America where nobody really had money, okay? Rural America, small little town in Illinois. People were living paycheck to paycheck, okay? But you can't force people to pay for other people's amenities. Like, because where does it stop? You know, you're going to say, well, my cosmetic surgeries are a human right. Okay. My healthcare, you could say that that's healthcare. And they're already kind of doing this where they'll say like gender affirming care, you know, which could include a boob job or, you know, a nose job or whatever. In your cosmetic surgeries, I have to pay for that because it's deemed a human right. Okay, that's not cool. And I mean, I just don't understand. I mean, I don't know what your life is like, man, but I sure hope you aren't a rug, you know, where people just step all over you. You can't allow that. You have to have enough respect for yourself. And you know, demand that your money go towards things that are beneficial, you know, not just to this small majority of people who don't want to get their lives together. Okay, I'm not completely heartless against homeless people, and I know it's a big problem here in downtown Bloomington, but tax dollars going towards it, it's never really going to remedy the problem. Okay, the only thing that'll really remedy the problem is if they leave their life of addiction, and really the only people who are capable of doing that is God and, you know, salvation and leaving that life of addiction, and you wanting to leave that life of addiction through the sanctification of the Holy Spirit, right? And that is just something that I'm not willing to fund, okay, as a taxpayer. And I don't know what your life is like, but I really feel bad if you are, you know, treated like a doormat your entire life. People stealing your money, taking your money for people who don't want to better their lives because they're stuck in this addiction, which is so sad. But let's look at this logically. And they play on your emotions. Don't let them play on your emotions. It's facts over feelings, okay? The point is, no matter how much taxpayer dollars you throw at this, actually look at California. Okay, they've thrown more money at homelessness than they ever had. Okay, education isn't a right. We've thrown so much money at education. The students here in Illinois, I think it's $22,000 per pupil, and they're still not getting. They're still not reading at grade level or doing math at grade level. Okay, so it doesn't matter how much tax money you throw at it. The root issue of homelessness is that they don't want to leave their life of addiction. Okay. And I don't know about you, but I'm not willing to just throw money away. I mean, it's practically like throwing it away. So, look at the state of California. Look at San Francisco. They've spent LA. Look at LA. They actually diverted funds from the fire department, by the way, which your local government is required to in public safety, basic infrastructure. Okay, right to life. Okay, this is the only right that you've really got, and making sure you know, circumstances like wildfires doesn't take that away from you, your life. That is the role of the government, your public safety and basic infrastructure. Okay, and they took money away from the fire department, LA, and they decided to throw it towards the issue of homelessness. It seems like the more money they throw at homelessness, the worse it gets, because you've enabled these behaviors, the behaviors of addiction, because they don't actually want to leave their addictive lifestyle. Now, if somebody in the private sector or if somebody in a church wants to try to, you know, pull them out of their addiction and get them to change their life. I am completely for that. I think that's admirable. Just don't do it on my taxpayer dime, because I don't want to be forced to pay for somebody who doesn't want to get better. Okay. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I want to be very clear. I think it's admirable that there's people out there who want to correct the issue of homelessness. Okay, much like education isn't a right, housing isn't a right, food isn't a right. Okay, none of this are human rights. Your government, basic infrastructure, public safety, that's what they're in charge of. LA, they've spent more money on homelessness than any other, I mean, billions of dollars. They actually diverted from funds from the fire department in LA, okay, during these most recent wildfires, which, like I said, public safety, preserving life in your community by ensuring public safety. That's your police department, that's your fire department, and preserving life. That should be the top priority of government. Okay, but they diverted the funds from public safety, okay, the fire department, and they put it towards an issue that is never going to be resolved, no matter how much taxpayer dollars you throw at it. It will never be resolved. Much like education, you can throw as much money as you want at education. If you're not correcting the issue, which is in our education system, teachers not teaching basic math, reading, and writing, okay, and they're too focused on the cultural and culturally training your child and indoctrinating your child. If we don't fix that issue, they're never going to read and write at grade level. Okay, we've at $22,000 per pupil or something like that, because education is a right, as the left will say, and it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it because you're not fixing the issue. Homelessness, it's all about addiction. Really, it's all about addiction. They don't want to come out of their lifestyle of addiction. And Home Sweet Home or churches, I know Abundant Life, they are huge with addressing the homelessness problem. If you want to correct the homelessness problem, go and donate your money to these organizations. Abundant Life, they're great over there. Donate your money there of your own free will. My issue with the tax dollars being spent on homelessness, you're taking it from somebody and you're forcing it out of somebody's hands who's worked hard for that. And these people, they need way more counseling to get out of their addiction and to want to change their life in order for that money to be used properly. Okay. Otherwise, you're just going to keep enabling. So the homelessness issue in LA, if you look at it, billions of dollars diverted from the fire department for the homelessness issue, and homelessness has gotten so much worse the more money they throw at it. Why? Because they're not fixing the issue, the root problem. And I think that people who are in ministry, Christians, they are equipped to help you nobody can really pull you out of addiction other than Jesus Christ himself, right? Pull you out of it and through the sanctification of the Holy Spirit. But they're better equipped to get to the root of that issue. Okay, not your government. They're not going to be able to pull you out of addiction. These people actually care. And that's why I'm so against taxpayer dollars going towards homelessness. Because it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. In fact, it probably will make it worse, okay? Because you're not fixing the root issue. You're just throwing money at the problem, and you're not fixing the problem. These people are equipped. Abundant Life is equipped to fix the homelessness problem. I got to take a quick break, but when we're going to come back, I wanted to read this BLN News article because she offers a solution to the homeless problem. And this is kind of funny. The Connect Transit property there, they own it. They abandoned it like for 15 years and they've leased it to the city of Bloomington. She raised a great point in BLN News. She says, why wasn't the transfer station built there? Yeah, one would think. So it's not built there. This would be an estimated $2.5 million project on property near Main Street and Oakland Avenue that's currently owned by Connect Transit. So yeah, I mean, Connect Transit, I mean, they're, government funded. So in a way, it's probably government funded. I'd be okay with it just private, nonprofit, just donations. If now Home Sweet Home isn't getting, but if there's taxpayer dollars going through to this project, I am not for that at all. $2.5 million. Like I said, the reason why is because you can't fix it with taxpayer dollars, how much money you throw at it. Okay, private dollars, yes. We're going to get to this. This is a funny, kind of funny op-ed, BLN News. I'll be right back. All right, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and we'll be right back. Welcome to the Red Kingdom. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Like I said, I wanted to get to this op-ed. I think it's pretty good. blnnews.com. You can check it out. Home Sweet Home Ministries, they want to build like a shelter village, 50 tiny homes, sleeping cabins, and it'd be surrounding a community building to serve the homeless. Okay, so there'd be a community building, and then there would be like these tiny homes all around. It sounds great, and it would be near the nonprofit's Bloomington facility. So this is Home Sweet Home Ministries. I've got no problem with this as long as it's not done on taxpayer dollars. Okay, it's a $2.5 million project, and it would be on the property near Main Street. Now this is where it gets tricky because Connect Transit, and I don't know what kind of grants the Home Sweet Home Ministry gets, but Connect Transit owns that property. Now they relocated like more than 15 years ago, so they haven't been on that property, and they've been leasing it to the downtown or to the city of Bloomington on a month-to-month basis. So it's technically, I guess, the city of Bloomington property, but Connect owns it. Okay, so Bloomington pretty much has ownership of this property right now, I guess. So this is what the Home Sweet Home CEO, according to the NPR, Connect Transit can be a part of a solution to address an unsheltered homelessness across our community. Okay, they can be part of the solution to address the unsheltered homelessness across our community. So it's a big problem in Bloomington. I don't think I need to tell you that. But Matt Burgess, he's the CEO, he told the transit board that if Connect Transit allows for them to, do this $2.5 million project. Now I'm thinking that the $2.5 million comes from Home Sweet Home. I don't know. From what I understand, it won't be taxpayer dollars, but if it is, totally against it. That's probably not a good choice. Like I said, you don't want to force people to pay for homelessness. Housing is not a human right. Okay, I know that might ruffle some feathers, but it's just the facts. Education is not a human right. Healthcare is not a human right, and you shouldn't be obligated to pay for somebody who doesn't have housing. Okay, that's not fair. Okay, it's not equality. It's not morally right. Okay, so if now private dollars and people in the private sector want to, address homelessness, and they, want to dedicate dollars and resources and the time to addressing the true problem with homelessness, which is the addiction and people not wanting to leave their addiction, then I'm all for that, right? So Home Sweet Homes, they want to build these tiny houses in south of downtown on the Connect Transit land that they've abandoned for 15 years. They've leased it to the city of Bloomington. Like I said, I don't know why the transfer station wasn't built there. We talked about the transfer station. It's going to be in downtown Bloomington, so not south of downtown Bloomington, where the transfer station parking lots. They knocked down these abandoned buildings, the city of Bloomington, and they're going to allow the Connect Transit transfer station to be there. Don't know why Connect Transit having this property, for 15 years, why they didn't just build the transfer station there. Don't know. Strange. I try not to figure out government. Okay. But I like this, the faster idea for downtown housing. Okay. How to address the homelessness issue. Now this is according to BLN News, tow all of the Connect Transit abandoned electric buses to that property. Since Connect Transit is buying 12 new buses that aren't electric, according to BLN News, it looks like they're not buying. So they're called heavy duty, and I'd imagine heavy duty buses, that's at the way they describe them. I'd imagine that doesn't mean electric. Okay, so these are 12 new buses. And I don't know if they are ever going to get these electric buses to run. Okay, that they did buy. Okay, so I think it was 11 of them so far. I've not been on the road. You could divide each bus into 2 family sleeping quarters. Okay, so in December, 11 of them were not on the road. That means at least 22 people would have instant housing. Okay, if you divide these 11 buses into, 2 family sleeping quarters, so you housing at least 22 people with these buses. They're waterproof, probably. They come with windows and seats. The seats could be removed for beds. And you could put some splits, like mini splits in there for heating and air conditioning. You could put some of those electric air conditioners in there. So you could put some of those in there, and the cost would be a lot less. since the taxpayers already bought the buses. Okay, so the buses are already, we've already paid for them. They're like $12 million, these electric buses. And, this would be putting them to use if they're not going to be out on the road. Okay, so they already own the property and the buses. And I like how BLN News, but I haven't heard of a better plan, okay, for these huge buses, for these electric buses. And then they say, of course, oh, it could be a fire hazard, though, because we know, Rivian, you guys remember the story where all the electric vehicles just like caught on fire, the solar panels, all of that, all the green weenie science, it just randomly like catches on fire. It's weird. But of course, this will never happen. But I thought it was a hilarious suggestion. You just take the electric buses that haven't really been put to use because they can't get them running, and you convert them into sleeping quarters for people. And that could address the homelessness issue. And it would cost less because, this is a $2.5 million project. How much of that is taxpayer dollars? I don't know. But yeah, so I thought that was an interesting concept where we just take the electric buses and we convert them into sleeping quarters for people. All right, let's get to something else this morning. Go ahead, smash that like button. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I know people are probably like, Kat, you're so heartless. You don't want to address homelessness. No, I do. I want people in the private sector or in churches to address homelessness because they understand the true problem is the addiction, and you have to get people pulled out of their addiction and want a better life. They really need Jesus, the holy sanctification of the sanctification of the Holy Spirit, to want to be pulled out of that addiction and out of that lifestyle. And that is beyond what our government can do. Okay. And I think that the only people capable of pulling people out of addiction are Christians, people in places like Abundant Life. They're the only ones truly capable, and it doesn't matter how much government money is thrown at this. If you don't get people on the ground who are equipped with this and equipped with how to pull people out of addiction, and truly, it's a waste of taxpayer dollars to throw it, and it's not a right. Housing is not a right, and that's a slippery slope we don't want to go down. If you start saying everything is a right, you're going to be funding people's lives. Okay, you're going to be funding their healthcare, their education, like the student loan thing Joe Biden approved, where we paid everybody's student loans. He did this on against the Supreme Court ruling, by the way, like the fascist dictator that he is, Joe Biden. He went against the Supreme Court ruling saying, no, you can't do that. Education is not a right. Okay, so we can't, force people to pay for other people's education. We can't force people to pay for other people's housing. So yeah, that's my position on it. Throw all the private money you want at it. Just don't take people's money from them to house individuals who probably don't even really want to be housed, at least some of them, because they're so caught up in their lifestyle of addiction. I want to get to this story. You guys are really going to like this. This is a woman. She was a Democrat, she was censured by the Democrat majority in Maine. Okay, so Maine House of Representatives, they decided to punish this woman. Her name is Lauren Libby. They decided to punish her because she has the radical idea that men are men and women are women, and men should compete against men and women should compete against women in sports. Okay, which is not really a controversial. I don't want to say that this is a controversial topic, really, because this has been around since, all of human history, that men ought to compete against men and women ought to compete against women. We should have integrity in our competitions. And now all of a sudden, because of progressives, apparently that's a bigoted sentiment, or it's a bigoted ideology. So in the name of inclusivity, they excluded the rights of females to fairly participate against their peers. Okay, their female counterparts. So now they've stripped women of their rights to just compete against their female rights to compete against their female peers. So take a listen to this. Here we go. This is her getting censured, the GOP representative.
The chair understands that the member does not intend to submit an apology to the body. The member will be in violation of House Rule 401, Part 11. The member will not be able to cast a vote or speak on the floor until the member has come back into compliance with House Rule 401, Part 11. The member may return to her seat.
Okay, so there you have it. She was censured. That was her getting censured. So she was censured over her posting a photo of a trans-identified male pole vaulting and winning the state high school championships earlier this month, okay, in February. So in wake of her posting that photo, the Trump administration has pressured the state to abide by the executive order signed by President Donald Trump in early February, barring biological males from female sports. Okay. So there was an executive order. Maine, the governor, at one point she said, "I'll see you in court, Donald." Okay. So they're not interested in following federal law. Okay. They're not interested in following, Title IX. Now, these were rights afforded to women. Okay. Unlike housing and education, those aren't rights afforded to women, women's rights. They were added after the fact, but through Title IX, like, hey, women have to have integrity in our competitions. Title IX. Okay, so they are actual rights that females are being stripped of to have fair competition. Okay, so I don't know why Democrats, they keep pushing this. This is like an 80-20 issue. 80% of people believe that men should compete against women and women should compete against women. I don't know why Democrats are hell-bent on tripling down on this issue, and they refuse to uphold the rights of females everywhere by tripling down on this issue, by the way. You lost the election. This type of behavior costed you the election. Okay, so I want to play a little bit of this clip. This is her trying to deliver a speech, the GOP representative here, and trying to pretty much advocate for herself as to why she, shared this photo. She spoke on the House floor during debate on the resolution, attempting to defend her actions, while other members of the House frequently cut in and derailed her comments. Take a listen. Here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My speech does include some background to this post and the events thereafter. So I hope I will not be silenced during the middle of my speech. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, over the last 6 years, the chief executive and legislative Democrats have done as they pleased, ignoring the will of the Maine people.
The member will defer. The chair would recognize the representative from Portland, Representative Moonen, and inquire to his point of order.
The remarks thus far bear no resemblance whatsoever to the words in this order, Mr. Speaker.
The chair will remind the member to keep the comments to the order at hand.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The order at hand is to silence me, censure me, and my comments are regarding silencing. So I think they're quite pertinent, if I may proceed. Whether it was the handling of COVID, passing a late-term abortion bill.
The member will defer. The chair will remind the member that the order before us is related to a post that the member made on Facebook related to a minor and their photo being shared on Facebook. I don't recall the post having anything to do with the pandemic or the chief executive. So the member may want to, the chair may provide the member with the courtesy of coming back to her when she has her remarks refined to not include comments about things that are not before the body.
Okay. So essentially, they just kept cutting her off. She was trying to explain, why she had posted this pole vaulter. He's a male pretending to be a female, and he won the state high school championship. And she thought that was wrong. Okay. And she was trying to explain why she had posted the photo, and they just kept interrupting her. Okay. The first interruption was Representative Matt Moonen. He was a Democrat. And oh boy, he says the chair should be reminded that her that her comments be may pertain to the order at hand. Okay, so they just kept interrupting her. The reason the left silences those who they disagree with is because they don't live in reality. They don't go by biology. They don't go by logic. And there's nothing really on their side other than emotion. Okay. And anytime that they're faced with that, they can't argue their cause. Okay. They resort to silencing others because they can't hold up their cause. They can't hold up their issue when it comes up to debate because there's no logic. There's no biology. There's nothing on their side except their deranged take on this emotional aspect of it. So the transport issue, one of the most illogical stances that the left has. It's not going to be looked at as favorably down when it goes down in history. People are going to look back and they're going to be like, what? We were uplifting special privileges for men over women, and we were destroying the rights of women. It's not going to look good in the history books. Okay. So unfortunately for them, biology will always be a thing. Logic will always be a thing. And the sooner they realize that, the better out they're going to be. This poor woman, she was silenced, and she's a representative. Okay. We're living in 2025. She's a representative. She should be able to say what she wants and post what she wants. This is a pole vaulter who won a state competition against females. And that's why she'd posted it. She was protesting on social media about this guy, this young boy, winning against females. And she said that wasn't right. So I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Gat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. This morning, we kind of been talking about the homelessness issue because apparently there's a $2.5 million project that they've been talking about, Home Sweet Home Ministries. They want to put it on the Connect Transit land that they've abandoned for 15 years and they've been leasing to the city of Bloomington. So somebody texted, they said, the amount of homelessness people in my town, aside from the addiction, are mentally unwell people, and they wouldn't be able to hold a job regardless of sobriety. Yeah, so I think that the main problem would be the addiction, drugs, alcohol, whatever the case may be, and pulling people out of that addiction is really tough to do because really, ultimately, who does that for you would be Jesus Christ, the sanctification of the Holy Spirit, right? I truly do believe that. And it's hard to pull people out of addiction in your humanness, okay? For other humans to pull people out of addiction. But this is true, mentally unwell. Something that happened, it was Jimmy Carter's, and it wasn't actually Ronald Reagan. I do want to bring that up. The closing of our mental health or our mental institutions, okay? Now, these are institutions where, they were closed down. This was the Mental Health Systems Act. Now, this was under Jimmy Carter. A lot of people will say Ronald Reagan did this. I want to clear that up because I actually did some homework on this. The Reagan administration closed all mental institutions. You might hear that. That's not true. That's a myth. It's been stated by politically motivated individuals before. That statement is just straight up false. Okay. Reagan didn't do that. In the 1980s, under Jimmy Carter, the Mental Health Systems Act of 1980 was passed. The bill provided federal grants to local community health centers. 1 year later, the 96th Congress, with the Democrat majority in both houses, repealed the act. So Reagan signed the repeal, okay, which was placed on his desk by Congress, but he was merely following the wishes of the elected representatives of his constituents, okay? Reagan agreed with the majority of the Democrats that it was better to allow the states to retain control of the funding and operations of the mental health institutions. Okay, so he believed that hey, it should be a states thing. Now, the 1980 Act that was passed under Jimmy Carter, what this did, it was it was trying to reduce the stigma. That's what Democrats at the time had said, reduce the stigma, and they didn't do the proper thing and provide outpatient services after they closed all these mental institutions. And they wanted to, open up these. I think the bill provided federal grants to local community health centers. So they closed the institutions and then they opened up these federal grants for the mental health centers. And the mental health centers, they were different in that you wouldn't be institutionalized and you'd go in your own, with your own, of your own free will, right? So institutionalizing people, that wasn't done by, or that was done by force. These institutions, it's similar to what we have with the incarceration system. A lot of these people, after the institutions closed, they just went straight into homelessness and they went into to being incarcerated. Okay, so Reagan agreed with the majority of the Democrats that it would be better for the states to retain control of the funding and the operations of the mental health institution. So he didn't like the idea of it being funded federally. He said that the state should be in charge of that and fund their mental institutions. Okay, that's what he did. What he also did as governor, he signed this this act in 1972, and it was bipartisan legislation that made mandatory institutionalization of mental health patients by family members in civil courts illegal. Okay, so this was a way, that way a bad judge or a vindictive relative couldn't get you locked up indefinitely in a state hospital. So that was that act as he passed as governor in 1972. So the result of that humanitarian legislation, the populations in state hospitals dropped, but Reagan didn't directly oversee or directly cause those hospital closures. Okay, so they dropped and then the hospitals ultimately closed. And the state decided to stop funding them because the state hospital population dropped. And it was like an indirect result of the humanitarian legislation that he passed where, your vindictive relative can get you locked up by force in civil court, which was just, ridiculous. So Reagan wasn't the one. And the mental institutions, they closed under the Mental Health Systems Act. It was aimed at reducing stigma. They closed up the institutions. That was all Jimmy Carter. Okay. And that's what he did, the Mental Health Systems Act. So opening those up could also potentially remedy the homelessness situation if we were to open up mental health mental institutions again. And yeah, so I like that comment. The amount of homeless people in my town, town, aside from the addiction, are the mentally unwell people. I think if you get people boots on the ground, private individuals, churches on the ground, trying to pull people out of their addiction, because it's not something that I believe the government is capable of doing. They're just going to throw money at the problem, and they're not going to fix the problem. The true fix to this would probably be the opening of mental institutions again. And you can thank Jimmy Carter probably for the big homelessness problem now because of the Mental Health Systems Act. All right, I want to get to this. Donald Trump. This is a kind of sweet story. Donald Trump, he was at the White House, and there was like this first White House visitor tour under the Trump administration, okay? And the crowd started chanting USA, USA in excitement because they saw President Donald Trump. This was a surprise visit. I really like this clip. Take a look. People are screaming.
The White House. What an exciting visit. Is everybody having a good time? There's nothing like the White House, right? No matter where you go. First Lady worked very hard at making it perfect, and I think you're going to really love it. And I heard you were here, and I said, let's stop by and say hello. Maybe someday you'll be here as a president, right? You're going to give them a special tour, okay? Have fun, everybody.
USA! 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 USA!
It's so nice. I mean, like, he comes off so genuine and like happy to meet his supporters, whereas Joe Biden, a literal potato, would have probably been in bed, at this time where these visitors were there at the White House. So this was the first tour, and he says, Donald Trump, I want to thank you very much. The tour is so great. The First Lady worked very hard making it perfect, and I think you guys are going to really love it. And he said something about like somebody being the president there in the crowd. He goes, you guys look like a group of very smart people. I'd say very smart. Maybe someday you'll be president, right? And, the crowd starts to laugh. So he's just like this genuine guy. And I just saw this clip and I was just like, this is so refreshing to see somebody in the White House who like is lively and isn't, a potato. So just imagine if Kamala had one, though. And, surprised a group on her tour. She'd either probably run away or she'd start like cackling like the insecure tyrant that she is. Or she'd run away from the group entirely. So it's a relief to see a president who greets his visitors with enthusiasm. And he's just so genuine here. And it's a horrifying thought thinking about Kamala Harris being in the White House, right? But he has a natural way of making people feel good, I think, Donald Trump. And, I don't think that you could say that about people on the left, many people on the left. The last thing many politicians care about is you. And this clip is proof. I mean, he's smiling at his reporters. They're chanting USA. This is proof that he cares about making America great again, and he cares about you as a politician. I don't think he could say that about many politicians, left or right. So I just saw this and I was like, oh, this kind of warmed me. So they started just screaming USA. So he was met with a bunch of enthusiasm on the first White House tour. So I want to switch gears. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about how a TikToker is now calling for Elon Musk to die. Yes, and she was bragging about her not paying her taxes for 8+ years or whatever the hell. And I was like, what? I was like, wait a second. You didn't pay your taxes for 8+ years and you're calling for the assassination of Elon Musk? Now the U.S. Attorney's Office is involved because she, used the internet and touted that she wasn't paying her taxes. So the U.S. Attorney is now involved. So we're going to get to that story here next on Conservative Cat. Mental institutions. It would be so much better if they were privatized, but mental institutions, it's different. So And addiction, a lot of this should be done. So public safety, this is my position, Dan, public safety and basic infrastructure. Okay. Now, if you've got people like loitering and things like that, what we really should be doing is locking them up. But we have issue with locking people up who are addicted and who are mentally ill. Okay. And that's why these people are homeless and they're on the street, is because they're not incarcerated. Okay. They are threats to public safety if they're addicted and they're, doing open air drug deals. And if they're loitering and things like that, what really should be happening is that they should be incarcerated. Okay. Because it is against the law. But unfortunately, unfortunately, but fortunately, our law enforcement, they don't like doing that. Okay, so these people just never see the inside of a jail cell because it is morally, I think, wrong to be incarcerating people who are addicted and who are mentally ill. That's not the place for them. Prisons are not the place for them. And that's why it was so devastating that we closed down these mental institutions. Okay. So that's why there's a homelessness problem as well, is because really, truly what should be happening is they should be locked up if they're doing open air drug deals and if they are mentally ill to a point where they're a danger to themselves or others. Okay. So yes, the mental institutions, open those back up. I think that would remedy a lot of the solution here. Public safety, housing isn't a right. So forcing me to pay taxpayer dollars to somebody who just does not want to get better, that's not fair. Okay. But mental institutions, it's more of a public safety issue. Okay. And that is the business of our government, where, state-run mental institutions, rather than incarceration, they go there. Now, addiction, that's not the business, I don't think, of the government, unless it becomes a public safety issue. Like I'm addicted to coffee. Okay. For example, love coffee, can't deal without it. Okay. I don't think it should be on the government dime or on the taxpayer dime to get me unaddicted to coffee. Okay. Now we're talking about dangerous drugs here that cause people to do dangerous things. So if you're, doing dangerous things while on an addictive drug, then yes, you need to be locked up and incarcerated. Okay. And yeah, the state shouldn't be in the business of, it's just so tough because it's like there's so many different remedies, and there are addiction centers. The government does pay for addiction centers and things like that. A lot of these people just don't even want to go to the addiction center. They don't want to change their life because they're so caught up, and I believe addiction is a demon. And they're so caught up in that they just don't want to leave that lifestyle at all. And it takes really somebody much bigger than me to get them out of it, and much bigger than I believe most Christians. But the best way would be to witness, and try to pull people out of that addiction. Let's see. Yeah, mental institutions, I don't know why they like have such a stigma around them. Like that is like the place where you can get continuous care, and it's not a place of incarceration. Where a lot of our homelessness comes from is people who are mentally ill. They get incarcerated because they do something crazy, and they don't receive the care that they need, and then they serve their time in prison, and then they're released, and they're right back out onto the street. And our incarceration system is not designed for mentally ill people. Okay. We should have something designed for mentally ill people. So you're running into, taxpayer money. Yes, it should be used when we're addressing public safety. It shouldn't be used to house individuals who don't want to be housed. Okay. It shouldn't be used for healthcare services. That's where you're running into the problem of healthcare services. Mental health is healthcare, but it's so tricky because mental health is also a very slippery slope. If this person is a danger to themselves and society, then you need to lock them up in a mental institution. And unfortunately, our incarceration system is not designed for people who are mentally ill. So you can't lock them up there. So I think that the mental institutions coming back would be very beneficial. So there's a big difference between providing people health care with your tax dollars and providing your tax dollars to the public safety, okay, aspect of it. So really mental institutions is public safety. It's more about public safety than providing health care. It's locking individuals up to keep them away from endangering themselves or others, okay? It's just a bonus that they're getting the care that they need, the continuous care that they need. So, yeah, I mean, totally different. Mental institutions are totally different than providing taxpayer dollars to somebody who does not want to get better and does not want to leave their lifestyle of homelessness. You can't force taxpayer dollars into this and expect people to want to change. You're just enabling at that point. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. Look at LA and what they did. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I don't know if leftists don't know how the internet works and social media. Okay. It's the year 2025. Okay. Mark Zuckerberg invented Facebook, invented social media years ago. Okay. The internet was invented years ago. So I don't know why in 2025 these people don't know how the internet and social media work, but apparently they just don't. Okay. So this girl, she's a TikToker and she gets on social media and she starts bragging about committing crimes and threatening somebody's life. And this is on social media so other people can see it. And, TikTok is not a personal journal. It's not a manifesto. People on social media can see what you're saying. Okay. So this TikToker, she goes by the name Sarah C. Roberts. Okay. At Sarah C. Roberts. And she posted this rant. And she said that she tries not to watch the news, but she has watched the news and she's come to the conclusion that she wants to unalive or kill Elon Musk. So here's what she said, and I'm going to try my best with this because it's riddled with profanity. So here we go. I promised myself I would avoid the news. This is what the girl on TikTok says. But obviously I haven't. Here's my one thought. I mean, I have many thoughts, but Elon Musk, we have to X him. And by X him, I mean assassination. That's what she says here. Okay, so she's threatening somebody's life on social media. And if the FBI is going to show up, don't arrest me. Okay, so she knows that's illegal. She's admitting this with her mouth that she knows that that's illegal because she knows that the FBI could show up and arrest her. Okay, you don't have enough people, FBI, to investigate me at this point. I also haven't filed my taxes in 8 years. So I'm just going to say it. Let's assassinate some blankers. I can't say what she was saying in this, but she riddled with profanity. She puts this on TikTok. It does appear that she caught some disinformation on CNN, and anybody who is anti-Trump at this point, anybody who screams at the sky about Elon Musk, my suggestion to you, if you know a leftist and they can't stand Trump or Elon, I would just ask them, hey, how much TV are you watching? Hours a day, and what channels are you watching? And really get to the bottom of why they feel this way. If they're watching 6+ hours of TV a day, and they're watching CNN, okay, of course they're going to feel this. And I just find it interesting. She's watching this disinformation the news media is spreading about Trump and Elon and their government reforms. Neither the FBI or the IRS are understaffed. Okay. In fact, just a couple of days ago, we were celebrating the fact that Dan Bongino was appointed as the assistant FBI director. Okay. So they're not understaffed. They're hiring people as we speak, the FBI, Deputy Director Dan Bongino. So, who else is well-staffed? This guy, the U.S. State's Attorney's Office, okay? United States Attorney, the Department of Justice. So the U.S. Attorney Ed Martin has access to the same social media and internet as at Sarah C. Roberts does. And this is what Ed Martin said. He goes, duly noted. Thanks for letting us know. We'll put you in the system. Talk to you soon. So the DOJ is going to be going after her. She hasn't paid her taxes. She admitted that. She also admitted to, she was threatening people. And I find it alarming how quick progressives are to wanting to kill somebody for having simple political disagreements. It's very alarming. I've never thought that, not even for a brief second. I just don't understand how you get to that point where you have a political difference or a disagreement with somebody, and you get to a point where you want to X them, like actually assassinate them. So Elon Musk thinks that the government should be smaller. That's it. He thinks that it should be smaller, more effective, less government helps the American people thrive. That's what he believes. And this woman, clearly, she doesn't believe that, but she wants to kill him because they disagree. The left is acting like he, wants people to be locked in their homes and take an experimental vaccine, actually therapeutic. I won't call it a vaccine, while their kids are, gypped out of their growth, their learning, and their development. They're acting as if that happened under Elon Musk. Wait, oh no, it didn't. Democrats were the ones who forced you to stay in your homes and forced our kids to, have growth and learning and development stunted because they weren't able to see people's faces because they were covered with masks. So, that they're acting as if Elon did that. He didn't. He just believes in smaller government and an effective government. All right, I gotta switch gears. We're gonna come back. I want to talk a little bit about this congresswoman. She's talking about the illegal aliens and how if we deport them, nobody's going to be there to pick our crops, which is just so racist. Nothing is more racist than a woke liberal trying to make sure that no human is illegal. Okay. They can't comprehend a life where we don't exploit migrants or brown people for their cheap labor. That's Democrats. They can't imagine a world like that. And I'm going to play this clip here on the other side. This congresswoman talks about how they need to pick our crops. Those brown people that come over, they need to pick our crops, and we can't deport them because we love exploiting their labor. That's the Democrat Party. And the fact that they think that they're morally superior and like that's the morally superior side here is astonishing. I'll be right back. Hey. Good morning. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I know I said that I was going to get to this. I don't think I'm going to have a whole lot of time, and maybe we'll do it tomorrow. But Congresswoman, her name is, Pramila. Is her name Pramila Jayapal? She's a congresswoman, and she got out there and said that, hey, we can't deport illegal aliens because Pramila Jayapal, she's warning Americans that if we deport criminal aliens, that nobody's going to be able to pick our crops. Nobody's more racist than woke liberal trying to exploit the labor of illegal immigrants. So we're going to get to that maybe tomorrow. I do want to end the show with this. This is kind of crucial. And this was Michael Butts. He was retained by State's Attorney Erica Reynolds to kind of conduct an investigation into the ethics or into the allegations lodged against Cassie Taylor and Elizabeth Johnson, who have been accused by Trevor Sierra in an email for going around soliciting donations for a PAC established to eliminate the county auditor. Okay, so Michael Butts, a partner with the Bloomington-based law firm Wood, DeVary, Armstrong, and Huska, sent the results of his investigation to the McLean County Board and State's Attorney Erica Reynolds February 11th. This is according to NPR, publicly funded radio. Conveniently, the publicly funded media outlet, they left out that Michael Butts, this investigation, he says that there's no substantiated evidence or whatever, or substantial evidence proving these allegations or whatever in his complaint. So let's read this. Yeah, the McLean County ethics complaint found to be unsubstantiated after attorney's investigation. Now, the McLean County Ethics Commission, we already talked about this. They referred it out because they believe that, or they said that, hey, if true, these allegations, this is more criminal, and we're going to refer this out to the state's attorney to toss it up to the attorney general. So that's where that's at right now, and the attorney general has to determine if something criminal happened. We know the state code says, hey, you can't use public funds or public resources to advocate for or against a referendum or political candidate. Okay, that's the state statute. And they didn't want to rule on anything because they were like, if these allegations are true, this is more like criminal, and it is unethical if it's criminal, clearly. Okay, so that's pretty much what the Ethics Commission had said. Now, this report from this attorney tasked with investigating the claims of political fundraising by government officials, McLean County government officials, said that there was no evidence to support the allegations raised by the former Assistant State's Attorney Trevor Sierra. Okay, so Michael Butts conducted this investigation. The publicly funded media, they did not include that Michael Butts is the son of Randy Butts. Okay, so the son of Randy Butts. This is crucial that we, point this out. Randy Butts is the chair of a PAC. It's called Common Sense McLean County. It was truly, I believe, established to go after Michelle Anderson. Okay, so the PAC was created, I believe, to launch an attack against Michelle Anderson. Randy Butts, in his personal capacity, and also through the PAC, they donated to a primary challenger of Michelle Anderson. I believe back in 2022, it was Tricia Malott and Michelle Anderson. They donated to her. Okay, so it's very clear through Randy Butts' behavior through this PAC, the Common Sense PAC. It's very clear that he is not pro Michelle Anderson, or he's unfavorable of Anderson. I think I can say that because they launched an attack ad. Now, this is WGLT's own reporting. They said the PAC, Randy Butts, who he's a chair of, the group's lone Facebook post is a video attacking the incumbent McLean County Auditor, Michelle Anderson, okay, who is herself a Republican. So this is a PAC that is largely supported by Republicans in McLean County, the Common Sense PAC, and they launched all kinds of attacks during, that primary challenge to Michelle Anderson against Michelle Anderson. Okay, so there's clearly it begs the question. Michael Butts, being the son of Randy, kind of led the charge against Michelle Anderson just a couple of years ago, created a PAC, I believe, to be dedicated to ousting Michelle Anderson from her county auditor position. Okay. That's not me saying it. That's their attack ads that they posted on their own Facebook page, Common Sense McLean County. Okay. It was like their only Facebook post. So it led me to believe that PAC was created to fund Trish Millant and get Michelle Anderson ousted. It begs the question, Michael Butts, do you hold the same beliefs as your father? Okay. Do you also have an unfavorable position against Michelle Anderson? And should you have been the attorney, considering your father's role in launching attack acts against the auditor? Should you have played a role in an investigation that looks into the donations to the PAC that were solicited to try to oust or eliminate the auditor? Okay, I don't think so. So that's crucial information when reading about or looking at Michael Butt's investigation. There is a potential conflict of interest there, considering that his father holds such a unfavorable position of the auditor, the Michelle Anderson, who was, the current auditor that was to be eliminated through the PAC that Lizzie Johnson and Cassie Taylor allegedly solicited funds for on government property. So yeah, I mean, take that investigation with a grain of salt is what I'm going to say about that. All right, you guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. I love you. We'll do it all over again tomorrow morning. Talk to you soon.